Maybe you can just share with us, how do you differentiate these four types of well-being?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I have learned throughout my life is looking at different areas of life. I know that health coaches, and when I tell people that I'm a health coach, they're often like, "Oh, so you're going to tell me what to eat and you're going to tell me how to move my body." And I say, yes, absolutely, if that's necessary. But as a personal trainer, that was kind of what I focused on when I was working specifically as a personal trainer. But what I noticed when people were coming to sessions was that often we'd spend much of the session having a conversation. And I'd kind of be like, come on, let's do this next. And clients would message me and say, thank you so much for the session today. I feel so much better. And I think, gosh, well, it didn't really work that hard physically. And I started to really look at what is going on for that person socially. They may have had an argument with a co-worker or a husband or whatever. They were feeling unhappy about something. They were struggling with feeling anxious about something. And when I qualified to be a personal trainer, I had just also finished my master's in social development practice. So really looking at people on a social level. And so when I moved into the coaching side of things and started looking at people's emotional and mental health, then I really started looking at those. What are these four different aspects for me? There are other aspects of health. There's financial health. There are a lot of other aspects that I don't necessarily, but can bring into my coaching. But for me, physical, that's a kind of fairly obvious, what is happening to our bodies physically, physiologically. That health is really important. It then impacts our emotional health and our mental health and our social health and vice versa. None of them actually happen within a vacuum. So if we're feeling a certain way, our physical health gets impacted, as does our emotional and our mental. They're all engaging with one another. So social health for me is really looking at our relationships. How are we interacting with other people in our personal lives, in our work lives? Emotional health, how are we feeling? And we're so often believe, oh, I'm an emotional person, people will say, but actually our emotions are very separate from who we are as in part of our identity. So what is happening in our emotional health and how would we like it to be different? And then in our mental health, that is, yes, anxiety and depression, but also how are we operating cognitively? Are we able to function, to make decisions, to perform in our workplaces, in the things that we do, or even in our home life, but mentally? I know that when I am struggling mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, I can't even think about what to cook for dinner. So they're all so interrelated, but
yes,
but there are different types of health. And I think that it's really important that we recognize all of those and don't just focus on one thing.
Essentially, I mean, when we talk about well-being, like you say, there's so many different elements and they are so interrelated. It's almost, if we did a self-check-in, we need to say, like, how you can't just say how is my well-being today. You've almost got to break it down and say, how is my physical well-being? How am I doing physically? Am I moving? Am I getting enough movement in? How am I doing mentally? What does that look like emotionally? Check in as well. And then obviously social well-being. I think through this time as well, we've realized that there's a lot of social isolation. Yes, communication over the phone is one way to communicate, but the simple things such as touch, physical touch, and engagement in that way may have an effect that we don't realize on our mental well-being or our overall well-being. So I think checking into each of those, how am I doing, is really an important way to look at it holistically. In terms of balancing these, why would you say it's important to find balance to these? We've touched on it earlier on around the balance and importance, but for you specifically and the training programs that you do, why is this so important? And what effects does it have if you are not balanced in these areas?
Well, I think that if we focus on one over the other, then we end up, because they are so interconnected, if we are not focusing on, for instance, our emotional health, the impact that then has on our physical health, where we may, in response to something that's happening emotionally for us, overextend ourselves physically. For instance, we might end up exercising too much. A lot of people, to escape what's happening emotionally, end up going for long runs, but not dealing with the issue at hand. That's actually not really very good for our bodies. And our mental health, then the impact of emotional health on our mental health means that then the way that we engage in work or in family life is affected. And so figuring out, why am I, my biggest thing in life is to be curious about why I do things, why I behave. And I think a lot of it is around our behavior. Oh, look, I just shouted at so-and-so. What is happening for me physically if I'm feeling ill, or if I'm feeling like I haven't fed my body properly, or I haven't moved my body properly? That is now impacting how I'm feeling, which is impacting how I respond. If I'm having an interpersonal issue with somebody, that can cloud my judgment or my concentration on other things. And so being curious and looking at, why am I over impressing my physical health? There's something else happening here. Before I started my own coaching journey, I was always action orientated. So we use this wonderful tool called the Enneagram. And I am an Enneagram practitioner, and I love using this tool because it's a personality typing tool, but it doesn't box us. And I won't go into that because it's a whole nother story. But I learned that my personality as a type 7 on the Enneagram is very, we are called the enthusiastic visionary. So we have lots of ideas and we run out there and we've got all these ideas and we want to do them or implement them all. I think it's frozen a little bit. Has it come back? It had a little freeze.
You're still frozen.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, you're back.
That's better. Okay, cool.
Oh my gosh, I'm a type 7 then.
I know it's awful, but it's wonderful. But
can you share that again? I mean,
okay.
I was frozen there, but I'm dying to hear.
Okay, no problem. Okay, let me go to where we use this fabulous tool called the Enneagram, which is a personality typing tool. And on the Enneagram, there are 9 personality types. And what I love about the Enneagram is it's not a boxing tool. So it doesn't say, you're this type, you're stuck there. It tells us that we actually have access to all 9 types, but we default to one type. So I am a 7 on the Enneagram, which is called the enthusiastic visionary. So we have all sorts of ideas and we are very future orientated. I think it's frozen again. Has it frozen? No, it's still there. Sorry. I have to cut that out. But we're very future orientated. We want to run. We're very action orientated. We want everything to happen now. And actually, we're not great at implementing things because we get quite bored. So we struggle to actually stick with one thing. And what I learned also about myself as a 7 was that I was out there doing everything. And I very rarely came inside to find out about, and I love this term too, my own inner landscape. What's going on inside me? Because I was out there doing. And which is great, except that I was crashing cars all the time because I had 5 jobs at one point, and I was waking up at 5 and getting from this job to that job to, and all over the place. And I really wanted to be able to focus more. So learning out about myself and that inner landscape was hugely valuable for me in terms of my emotional, mental health and my social health, and then also my physical health. And so when we can learn about ourselves in relation to the world, we can then manage ourselves and how we show up, how we engage with every aspect of our lives. And just finding that balance means that our relationships can be better, means that we can perform better at work, means that we can be healthier and live more holistic, integrated lives.
And in terms of, the next step of finding this balance, the word balance for me, the opposite is imbalance, I guess, but it's almost an impossible expectation to find the perfect balance. So our goal essentially would be to find some sort of harmonious balance between the 4, which will always be in flux. So people kind of, I think, also we need to understand that we'll never be in this balance and it'll stay like that. Things change, our environment changes, our situation changes. So we learn to adapt to the changing situations. But in terms of finding this elusive balance between the 4, how can one work towards greater well-being on all fronts? If it was just one thing that we could do today to find that balance in these areas, what is that one thing that we could take as a first next step to doing that?
I think that one thing, and my invitation to everybody, would be to be curious and to be aware of the fact that those things all impact one another. So if I'm eating the wrong things, why am I doing that? If I'm, so that's kind of on the physical health side of things. If I'm struggling to focus today, what's happening for me somewhere else that's causing me to have that struggle? And just be a little bit more curious so that you can grow your awareness. For me, it was coaching, having the space to talk about my behaviors, about myself, because I don't think that we spend time getting to know ourselves. And so a tool like the Enneagram, that just suddenly I also had the freedom to realize it wasn't just me, and the things that I berated myself for were actually a part of my personality, and I had there were other ways to experience that. So growing curious and growing our awareness, go and find somebody to talk to about the way that you behave or the way that you think or the way that you feel. I grew up being told that it wasn't really good to talk about myself. And with coaching, I suddenly found a space where somebody listened to me and then reflected myself back to me so that I could get to know myself a little bit better and then make the choices of how I wanted to live my life in balance a bit more. And as you say, it's changing all the time. I go for runs now and kind of coach myself. So Charlotte, what's happening with this? Why did you do that? Why do you think this is happening? And what's happening for you? And just that curiosity about ourselves. And getting to know, appreciate, and then perhaps even like ourselves, because I think so many of us don't, because we only really see the things that we do wrong. And how can we get to know ourselves and respect ourselves and appreciate who we are and what we have to offer? And then I think so much more balance can come into being and into play.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think that life is so busy that we avoid taking the time to be still or create a space of stillness that would afford us the opportunity to be curious. And a lot of the time, as you've said, many of us have been raised in this talking about yourself or looking after yourself or self-care is almost this no or taboo. We should be more selfless, or think of others. But essentially, if you don't fill your own cup up and have your cup overflow to be able to share with others, you're not going to be the best version of yourself. So I think also changing that mindset, like you've shared, to take the time to invest in yourself, to be curious and find out what's happening, will take you a lot closer to finding that balance. And again, finding a guide that will help you along that journey, be it a coach or a mentor or whoever that is, really takes you there a lot. I guess not take you there a lot quicker, but it just helps guide you there. So in terms of your coaching and your journey, I know a lot of your focus is around finding that better balance for physical, mental, emotional, and social well-being. How can they get in touch with you to take the next steps on a journey with you?
Yeah, so I have a website, which is www.charlottehaggie.com. And that has quite a lot of information about what I do and how I do it. Otherwise, just to email me at charlotte@charlottehaggie.com. And we've spoken in one of the other segments about a free 30-minute chemistry session, which is just an opportunity to meet me, to spend some time seeing if I'm the right person or if I can guide whomever towards the right person. I think it's really important in this space to be with the person that you can resonate with, that you can feel safe with and comfortable with. So I offer everybody a free session just to come and have a chat and see what works for you and what doesn't. And if it's not going to work for you, is there somebody else that I could recommend? But yeah, that is just an opportunity to get in touch and to see where we can go.
And what I really love about this time and the season is you can journey with your guide anywhere. So you don't have to be based in Cape Town to journey with you. Remote training is something that is current, and it's definitely a thing of the future as well, that you can be, whether you're sitting here in Canada, Australia, or in Johannesburg, you can really journey with your coach and your guide along this way. And it looks different to what it used to, but it's the same journey. So thank you so much, Charlotte, and thank you for your invitation. And really thank you for sharing the conversation about balance today. And yeah, I'm very excited about the journey ahead, and I look forward to continuing our conversations. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having me. It's been wonderful to spend this time with you.
Thanks.